Hello my friends. In today's video, I will try my best to explain the Five Nights at Freddy's lore for a beginner. I compiled everything I know about the franchise to be as easy to understand as possible, with of course some theories. So sit back, relax, put this video on background while you play, or put it when you go to sleep and enjoy the video. By day, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza looks like any other family restaurant filled with colorful banners, birthday balloons, the smell of pizza, and the cheerful jingles of animatronic mascots performing on stage. To a kid, it's magic. To a parent, it's nostalgic. But when the sun sets and the doors lock for the night, all that charm curdles into something darker, something colder. The lights dim, the halls fall silent, and the once jovial animatronics begin to move on their own. Not for maintenance, not for cleaning, but for something else entirely. Welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's, a game that began as a simple indie horror project and grew into one of the most complex, fan-driven mythologies in gaming history. In this expanded, in-depth journey, we're going to explore everything. From the original games to the novels and the movie, from deep lore and disturbing theories to hidden minigames and haunted circuitry. We'll walk through the tragic story of the Afton family, the children who never got to grow up, and the terrifying legacy of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. What makes FNAF so enduring isn't just the jumpscares, it's the questions. The mysteries buried in decades of slowly revealed lore. What really happened behind the doors of Fredbear's family diner? Who is the crying child? What's the true identity of Golden Freddy? And why does the phrase, "I always come back," send chills down our spines, even after all these years? To answer all of that, we have to rewind to where it all began. Not in 2014, when the first game was released, but much earlier, in universe, back in the early 1980s, at a small, unassuming place called Fredbear's Family Diner. This was before Freddy Fazbear's Pizza became a household name. Fredbear's was a smaller place, with just two animatronics. Fredbear, a golden bear with a microphone and a purple hat, and Spring Bonnie, a golden rabbit with a wide, unsettling grin. These characters were unlike anything seen at the time. They were operated using spring lock technology, a dangerous mechanism that allowed them to function both as automated performers and as suits that a human could wear. All it took was a misaligned spring, a drop of sweat, or a sudden movement, and the entire system could snap, crushing the person inside. With the animatronics now possessed, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was no longer just a restaurant, it had become a tomb, a haunted ground cloaked in denial. Parents began whispering, employees quit, lawsuits were threatened, and still, the company pushed forward, doing whatever it could to minimize bad press. They didn't care about the missing kids, they only cared about protecting the brand. But the ghosts of the past weren't quiet. At night, the animatronics wandered the halls. Their movements were erratic, their programming corrupted by grief and rage. To most, it looked like a simple glitch in their nighttime behavior protocols. But to those who looked closer to the night guards, who dared to stay past midnight, it was obvious something was very, very wrong. Then came 1987, and with it, a new location. Fazbear Entertainment, in their endless effort to reboot the franchise, opened a newer, safer Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. This one was equipped with more advanced animatronics. The toys, Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, and new characters like Balloon Boy and the Puppet. They were brighter, shinier, and had facial recognition software tied to a criminal database. It was their attempt at solving the security problem. But in their arrogance, they stored the old animatronics in the back, the withered versions of Freddy and his friends. The puppet, introduced during this time, was more than just a helper bot. It was Henry's final gift to his daughter, the very same daughter William Afton had murdered outside the original pizzeria. After her death, her soul had possessed the puppet. Now, she watched over the other spirits. She guided them, protected them. And in many ways, she was the moral compass, in a place that had lost all sense of right and wrong. The guard in FNAF 2, Jeremy Fitzgerald, had no idea what he was walking into. Each night, the toy animatronics became more aggressive. Balloon Boy disabled his flashlight. The puppet's music box had to be wound constantly. And worse, the wither had started to move again. They were old, broken, and hostile. driven by the agony of what had happened to them. Freddy's was a battlefield of ghosts, old and new. But then, something happened. An incident. One that's been debated endlessly by fans. The bite of 87. Some unlikely security guard was attacked during the day. An animatronic clamped its jaw onto their head and crushed their frontal lobe. Miraculously, the victim survived, though their brain function was never the same. Who was the culprit? Many point to Mangle, a disassembled, spider-like version of Foxy that kids constantly pulled apart and reassembled. Others argue it was Toy Chica or even Balloon Boy. But the truth is, we don't know for sure. All we know is that it shut down yet another pizzeria. And in the shadows, William Afton continued his work. Despite everything, Fazbear Entertainment tried one last time to revive the brand. In the early 1990s, they opened another pizzeria smaller, stripped down, and operating on a shoestring budget. It was meant to be simple, a way to bury the past and try again. But once more, the past clawed its way back to the surface. This is where the first game FNAF 1 takes place. You play as Mike Schmidt, a security guard hired to monitor the animatronics. You're given limited power, 2 security doors, and a flickering set of cameras. Each night, things get worse. Freddy and his friends roam the building, trying to reach your office. You hear cryptic messages from the previous night guard, the so-called phone guy, whose cheerful advice slowly turns to panic as the week goes on. Mike survives the week, maybe even longer, but he's eventually fired for tampering with the animatronics and other strange reasons, until you realize something important. Mike Schmidt may not be a new employee at all. He may be Michael Afton, William Afton's eldest son, using an alias to infiltrate the company and uncover the truth. This theory is one of the most widely accepted in the FNAF community. Michael, racked with guilt over his role in the crying child's death and determined to stop his father, begins working his way through every Fazbear location, trying to undo the damage. Surviving the animatronics, tracking down remnants of his family, searching for answers. And speaking of family, what happened to Elizabeth? William's daughter had always been fascinated by the animatronics, especially one, Circus Baby. Bright, friendly, and designed to dispense ice cream, Circus Baby was built by William himself. But what no one knew, with the animatronics now possessed, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was no longer just a restaurant, it had become a tomb, a haunted ground cloaked in denial. Parents began whispering, employees quit, lawsuits were threatened, and still, the company pushed forward doing whatever it could to minimize bad press. They didn't care about the missing kids, they only cared about protecting the brand. But the ghosts of the past weren't quiet. At night, the animatronics wandered the halls. Their movements were erratic, their programming corrupted by grief and rage. To most, it looked like a simple glitch in their nighttime behavior protocols. But to those who looked closer to the night guards, who dared to stay past midnight, it was obvious something was very, very wrong. Then came 1987, and with it, a new location. Fazbear Entertainment, in their endless effort to reboot the franchise, opened a newer, safer Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. This one was equipped with more advanced animatronics. The toys, Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, and new characters like Balloon Boy and the Puppet. They were brighter, shinier, and had facial recognition software tied to a criminal database. It was their attempt at solving the security problem. But in their arrogance, they stored the old animatronics in the back, the withered versions of Freddy and his friends. The puppet, introduced during this time, was more than just a helper bot. It was Henry's final gift to his daughter, the very same daughter William Afton had murdered outside the original pizzeria. After her death, her soul had possessed the puppet. Now, she watched over the other spirits, she guided them, protected them. And in many ways, she was the moral compass in a place that had lost all sense of right and wrong. The guard in FNAF 2, Jeremy Fitzgerald, had no idea what he was walking into. Each night, the toy animatronics became more aggressive. Balloon Boy disabled his flashlight. The puppet's music box had to be wound constantly. And worse, the wither started to move again. They were old, broken, and hostile, driven by the agony of what had happened to them. Freddy's was a battlefield of ghosts, old and new. But then, something happened. An incident. One that's been debated endlessly by fans. The bite of 87. Someone, likely a security guard, was attacked during the day. An animatronic clamped its jaw onto their head and crushed their frontal lobe. Miraculously, the victim survived, though their brain function was never the same. Who was the culprit? Many point to Mangle, a disassembled, spider-like version of Foxy that kids constantly pulled apart and reassembled. Others argue it was Toy Chica or even Balloon Boy. But the truth is, we don't know for sure. All we know is that it shut down yet another pizzeria. And in the shadows, William Afton continued his work. Despite everything, Fazbear Entertainment tried one last time to revive the brand. In the early 1990s, they opened another pizzeria, smaller, stripped down, and operating on a shoestring budget. It was meant to be simple, a way to bury the past and try again. But once more, the past clawed its way back to the surface. This is where the first game FNAF 1 takes place. You play as Mike Schmidt, a security guard hired to monitor the animatronics. You're given limited power, 2 security doors, and a flickering set of cameras. Each night, things get worse. Freddy and his friends roam the building, trying to reach your office. You hear cryptic messages from the previous night guard, the so-called phone guy, whose cheerful advice slowly turns to panic as the week goes on. Mike survives the week, maybe even longer, but he's eventually fired for tampering with the animatronics and other strange reasons until you realize something important. Mike Schmidt may not be a new employee at all. He may be Michael Afton, William Afton's eldest son, using an alias to infiltrate the company and uncover the truth. This theory is one of the most widely accepted in the FNAF community. Michael, racked with guilt over his role in the crying child's death and determined to stop his father, begins working his way through every fazbear location, trying to undo the damage, surviving the animatronics, tracking down remnants of his family, searching for answers. And speaking of family, what happened to Elizabeth? William's daughter had always been fascinated by the animatronics, especially one, Circus Baby. Bright, friendly, and designed to dispense ice cream. Circus Baby was built by William himself. But what no one knew, not even Elizabeth, was that Circus Baby had a hidden function: to capture children. One day, Elizabeth disobeyed her father's warnings and approached Baby while she was active. And that's when it happened. A hidden claw extended from Baby's stomach, pulled Elizabeth inside, and sealed her fate. From that point forward, Circus Baby wasn't just a machine, she was Elizabeth. Her soul, her voice, her pain, all trapped inside a metal shell. But William didn't shut everything down. No, he moved operations underground. Beneath a generic-looking facility, he created Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental, a shadow company, where animatronics were rented out for private parties. And deep beneath the surface, something else was happening. Something worse. Remnant. William had discovered a substance, or rather, a force that could grant life to metal. When extracted from the remains of haunted animatronics, Remnant could be used to create new forms of life to bind souls, to cheat death, and he began experimenting. It's in this underground nightmare, the setting of Five Nights at Freddy's, sister location, that Michael Afton next appears. This time, he's not just working as a security guard. He's posing as a technician under the name Mike. His mission? To find and free his sister Elizabeth, now fused with Circus Baby. Each night, he's assigned bizarre and dangerous tasks, crawling through vents, rebooting systems, avoiding death from malfunctioning animatronics like Ballora, Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, and of course Baby herself. At first, Circus Baby guides him gently. She seems different, protective, even warning Mike when to hide and how to survive. But as the week goes on, it becomes clear. Baby has a plan, and Mike is the final piece. By the final night, everything unravels. The animatronics reveal that they've fused into a single entity, Enart, a tangled monstrosity of wires, faces, and limbs controlled by Baby. Enart wants freedom, but it needs a body to escape in. So they trap Michael in the scooping room, a chamber with a massive mechanical arm designed to remove internal organs. Yes, scoop him out. And then they climb inside his empty skin. Ennard escapes to the surface inside Michael's hollowed out body. But this isn't the end for Michael. After several days, Ennard abandons his deteriorating host, and Michael incredibly gets back up. Somehow, thanks to remnant in his body or sheer willpower, he reanimates. He is dead, but not gone. In the final cutscene, Michael speaks to his father. "I'm going to come find you," he says. "I'm going to bring the rest of them back too." It's a vow that will guide the rest of the series. Michael, now a reanimated corpse, is on a mission to end William Afton's evil once and for all. Meanwhile, William has been busy. His obsession with experimenting on remnant, capturing souls, and achieving immortality has continued until he finally makes a fatal mistake. In the post-night minigames of FNAF 3, we see ghostly recreations of the animatronics luring William through dim corridors. He's being hunted by the spirits of the children he killed. Cornered, panicked, he flees to a secret room, a hidden space in the old Freddy's location, where he once performed his murders. There, he finds an old spring bunny suit. Thinking he can hide from the ghosts by wearing it, the very suit he used to lure them when they were alive, he dons the costume. But the room is damp, the suit's mechanisms are rusted, and as he moves, the spring locks snap shut. With a sickening crunch, the metal parts tear into his body. He collapses to the floor bleeding, gasping, and dying. His plan backfires spectacularly. The ghosts stare silently as their killer lies twitching on the ground. For years the room is sealed off, the building is abandoned. Afton's body, now fused with the decaying suit, is forgotten. He becomes something other, a rotting husk, a shadow of himself. But his soul doesn't leave. He festers, evolves, waits. He becomes springtrap. Then 3 decades pass. By the 2020s, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is nothing more than a legend. The murders, the hauntings, all dismissed as urban myths. There is, until a group of entrepreneurs decides to capitalize on the franchise's haunted reputation by opening a horror attraction, Fazbear's Fright. They collect old props, salvage animatronic parts, and build a haunted house. The public eats it up, but among the junk, they uncover something real, something terrifying. They find Springtrap. The events of FNAF 3 unfold in this setting. The player, working as a night guard in Fazbear's Fright, begins encountering strange phenomena. Springtrap moves through the building, stalking you. The phantom animatronics burned, twisted hallucinations appear on your monitors and in your face, messing with your systems. But only one animatronic is truly real, and it's him. Springtrap is no longer just William Afton. He's a living corpse, animated by agony and remnant, clawing his way back to the surface. At the end of the game, the attraction burns down. Newspaper clippings suggest that Springtrap was caught in the fire, but a hidden image shows a charred figure with glowing eyes walking from the ashes. Once again he survives. And once again, Michael Afton is still out there, following the trail of his father's destruction. But someone else has been watching from the shadows. Someone who's waited years to end this once and for all. Henry Emily. Henry Emily, the man who once co-founded Fredbear's Family Diner with William Afton, had been silent for decades. But silence doesn't mean ignorance. He knew what Afton had done. He knew that his own daughter Charlotte had become the puppet. He knew about the missing children, the remnant, the living machines. And he had a plan. In the mid-2020s, another Freddy Fazbear's Pizza quietly opens its doors. Not with fanfare, not with marketing. It's low profile, hidden in plain sight. And yet somehow, scrap animatronics begin showing up in the alley behind it. They're filthy, damaged, dangerous, but the new manager is instructed to salvage them anyway, to bring them inside. The manager? Michael Afton. This is the setup for Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, also known as FNAF 6. On the surface, it seems like a quirky tycoon game, where you design a family restaurant. But behind the balloons and arcade cabinets is a death trap, a carefully constructed stage for the final act. Each night, Michael works, watches, and listens. Each day, he's given a choice. Do you salvage the animatronics from the alley or throw them away? But these aren't just scrap heaps. These are the final ghosts of the past. There's molten Freddy, what remains of Ennard, after baby was rejected from the group. A mess of wires and melted parts, fused together by the souls of Funtime Freddy, Ballora, and others. There's scrap baby Elizabeth Afton, now fully in control of her own horrifying new body with a giant mechanical claw for a hand, no longer pretending to be innocent. There's Lefty, a black bear animatronic created specifically to contain the puppet. That's right. Henry himself built Lefty to capture and contain his daughter Charlotte's spirit. And it worked. And then there's Crabtrap William Afton. Somehow, impossibly, he's back, burned, broken, but still alive. Still moving, still hunting. Michael doesn't run. He brings them all in. He completes the ritual, because this is what Henry planned all along. In the final night, everything is revealed. Henry's voice plays over a cassette tape, echoing through the facility. He addresses each of the souls present. To the puppet, he offers closure. To Elizabeth, he pleads for her to let go of her hatred. To Molten Freddy, he acknowledges the suffering. And to William Afton, he offers no mercy. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. He then speaks directly to Michael. You may not recognize me at first, but I assure you it's still me. I'm sorry to say that your father is beyond saving. This was always the only way. You have been a brave employee and a loyal son. I'm sorry you must go through this. Henry reveals that the entire building has been rigged to burn. This is not a restaurant, this is a tomb. Flames engulf the pizzeria, the animatronics scream and writhe as their souls are finally released. Michael stays behind, choosing to burn with the rest of them, a final act of redemption. An end to his father's legacy. Henry dies with him. It's the only way to stop Afton from coming back again. As the fire consumes everything, we see the animatronics fall one by one. Scrap Baby's eyes flicker out. Lefty's mask is still. Molten Freddy disintegrates in the heat. And William Afton, now Scrap Trap, is left with nothing but his own sins and the fire. For a moment, it feels like true closure. The spirits are free, the cycle is broken, but not all spirits are ready to let go. There is one, perhaps the most vengeful of all, who refuses to forgive. The one the fandom calls Cassidy, the spirit believed to be inside Golden Freddy. The one Afton should not have killed. And Cassidy isn't interested in freedom. Cassidy wants revenge. You might think fire was enough, that Henry's carefully constructed trap in FNAF 6 finally put the ghost to rest. And, for the most part, it did. The puppet, Elizabeth, Molten Freddy, all their spirits were freed in the fire. Their torment ended. But one spirit didn't want peace. One spirit stayed behind. This is where Ultimate Custom Night begins, not as just a fan service challenge mode, but as William Afton's personal hell. You, the player, sit once again in the security office. But this time it's not real. It's a loop, an illusion, a prison. Afton is forced to relive his crimes every single night, over and over again. He's hunted by dozens of animatronics, old, new, twisted, digital. Their one goal, to kill him again and again. There's no escape, no sunrise, just pain. Who created this torment? All signs point to Cassidy, the vengeful spirit inside Golden Freddy, a child who died at Afton's hands and whose hatred burned hotter than any fire. While the others moved on, Cassidy stayed. And now, Cassidy is the warden of Afton's endless punishment. Throughout Ultimate Custom Night, cryptic voice lines and hidden Easter eggs paint a picture of purgatory. Afton is mocked, toyed with, killed in every conceivable way. There's a mysterious bear-like creature twitching in the darkness, possibly Golden Freddy himself, keeping Afton locked in this loop. One animatronic whispers, "I always come back." Another replies, "But not from this." This is the ultimate punishment, not death, but eternity. And still, somehow, it doesn't hold. Because William Afton is nothing if not persistent. Somehow, through force of will, hatred, or sheer corruption, Afton finds a way out. But this time, He doesn't return in the physical world. He doesn't need a body. He becomes something else entirely. He becomes code. Enter Five Nights at Freddy's. Help wanted the first VR game in universe created by a now desperate fazbear entertainment. They're trying to clean up their image. So what do? They take all the myths, all the murders, all the horrible press and package it into a fun, spooky VR game. Look, they say. It was just a story, a creepypasta, a joke. Don't take it seriously. But in doing so, they make a grave mistake. To build their game, they use real data, salvaged circuit boards, old code, leftover hardware from the ruins of the past, and within that data, something lurks, something familiar. He's back, not as springtrap, not as scraptrap, but as glitchtrap, a digital rabbit with a maniacal grin and a hypnotic sway. William Afton's consciousness, now fragmented and stitched together from corrupted code, begins to infect the VR game. At first, it's just static, then voices, then a presence. Players report strange activity, files disappearing, avatars acting on their own, and one by one, they begin to realize this game is haunted. The tapes within Help Wanted tell the story of a developer who discovered the entity too late. She tried to stop it, to trap it within recordings, to warn others, but Glitchtrap outsmarted her. He used the game to possess her. That's how Vanessa, a mild-mannered beta tester, became Vanny. Through the game, Afton found a new host, a new follower, a new vessel to continue his work. Vanny begins to appear in the game's hidden files, first as an icon, then a voice, then a masked woman in a rabbit suit, dancing and giggling in the shadows. Glitchtrap's plan is bigger than anything before. He doesn't want just a body, he wants access, infrastructure, systems, and Fazbear Entertainment is giving it to him, because the next step is the mega pizzaplex. It's bright, it's colorful, it's a neon-drenched tribute to everything Fazbear Entertainment ever created and everything they want you to forget. Set in the late 2020s, the pizzaplex is a glitzy megamo, arcade, concert venue, and entertainment hub all rolled into one. Think Chuck E. Cheese by way of a cyberpunk fever dream. And towering over it all are the glamrock animatronics upgraded versions of the classics. There's Glamrock Freddy, the new face of the franchise. Sleek, stylish, and strangely protective. Then there's Montgomery Gator, Roxanne Wolf, Glamrock Chica, and a host of side attractions and mini-bots. Fazbear Entertainment wants you to think this is a fresh start, a rebrand, a return to fun. But we know better. Because beneath the neon lights, the dark legacy is still there, buried, rotting, and clawing to escape. This is where Five Nights at Freddy's security breach takes place. You play as Gregory, a young boy trapped overnight inside the pizzaplex. He doesn't know how he got there. He doesn't know who Vanny is or why she's hunting him. All he knows is that the animatronics are acting strange, that security guards can't be trusted, and that his only ally is Freddy Fazbear. That's right, Glamrock Freddy. Unlike the others, seems to have developed sentience. He speaks, he cares, and most importantly, he protects. From the start, he hides Gregory inside his chest cavity, an eerie reversal of the franchise's darkest mechanic, and helps him navigate the mall. Together they explore the Pizzaplex's many sections: Monty Golf, Father Blast, the Daycare, Roxy Raceway, and more. But as they dig deeper, the truth comes to light. Vanny is here. She's watching, waiting. She moves in and out of view, flickering between security cameras. Sometimes she giggles, sometimes she chases. She's a living extension of Glitchtrap, and her goal is simple: to continue what William Afton started. But she's not the only threat. Throughout the game, Freddy glitches. The other animatronics attack. Something is messing with the Pizzaplex's systems. And eventually, Gregory and Freddy discover why. Deep beneath the Pizzaplex lies a buried ruin, the remains of the original pizzeria, burned in FNAF 6. The building that Henry used as a tomb to trap the last of the haunted animatronics. And inside, he's back. You find him sitting on a throne of wires, half machine, half corpse, this time called Burntrap. He's still alive, Or at least, something is. Whether it's Afton's actual soul, a corrupted digital copy, or an AI mimic created by leftover code, we don't know for sure. But Burntrap is very real, and he's still dangerous. In the final moments of security breach, you face him while a new threat emerges. The Blob. The Blob is a horrifying amalgamation of past animatronics faces of Funtime Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, and even the puppet are tangled together in a massive writhing nest of wires and agony. It might be the remnant formed remains of all the souls not laid to rest. It might even be controlled, in part, by the puppet or Cassidy. Either way, when Burntrap tries to take control of Freddy, the Blob intervenes. It wraps its wires around Burntrap and drags him into the dark. Gregory escapes with Freddy's head in his backpack and the pizzaplex burns once again. Another ending, another fire, another unanswered question. But what if Burntrap wasn't Afton? After security breach, things got complicated. The game raised as many questions as it answered. Who exactly is Burntrap? Is it really William Afton again, the same soul, the same man, reborn yet again? Or is it something else entirely? That's where the mimic theory comes in. To understand it, we need to look beyond the games and into the books, specifically the fazbear Frights and Tales from the Pizzaplex series. These collections of short horror stories were first viewed as alternate universe anthologies, but over time, they began tying into the games more directly, offering key insights into core fnaf concepts like remnant, agony, and digital possession. One of the most important characters introduced in these stories is a mysterious AI-driven animatronic called the Mimic. Originally designed to learn by watching and imitating humans, the Mimic was meant to be revolutionary AI. But something went horribly wrong. The more it observed, the darker its behavior became. Eventually, it began replicating violence, mimicking murders it had seen, and responding to suffering with eerie accuracy. It was emotionless, just copying patterns, but the results were deadly. Sound familiar? In later stories, we learn that the mimic was sealed underground, possibly in the same ruins beneath the pizzaplex. It had been locked away after a trail of disturbing incidents, but something, or someone, unearthed it again. This has led many fans to believe that Burntrap isn't William Afton's soul at all, but a corrupted version of the mimic AI, imitating Afton's mannerisms, words, and evil. A digital ghost, born not from a spirit, but from code. In the Tales from the Pizzaplex stories, the mimic evolves. It takes on different forms. Sometimes it's disguised as a human. Sometimes it uses leftover parts to rebuild itself. It's unstoppable, not because it's vengeful, but because it lacks the very thing that might stop it: empathy. If this theory is true, it reframes everything we thought we knew. Maybe the real Afton is finally gone, his soul burned in the fire of FNAF 6, trapped in UCN by Cassidy, and maybe what we're seeing in Security Breach and beyond is a copy, a reflection, a new kind of evil. Not a man, but a virus. Some fans speculate that Vanny wasn't possessed by Glitchtrap the Soul, but by the Mimic, pretending to be Afton using data pulled from old games and security footage. If true, this means Afton has become a legend, a myth the machines themselves now replicate, not because they understand, but because they're built to repeat patterns. This theory is reinforced by the Ruin DLC, where Gregory, or his friend Cassie, navigates the destroyed remains of the Pizzaplex. A new AI voice, calling itself the Entity, manipulates events behind the scenes, and when you reach the core, you find something disturbing: an endoskeleton, unlike any we've seen before, sharp, inhuman, and mimicking voices from the past. Could this be the Mimic? Could this be the next big villain? The tales from the Pizzaplex books seem to suggest yes. In fact, the final arc in those stories introduces an even more chilling idea that this AI is no longer confined to one form. It can spread, multiply, and infect anything connected to fazbear tech. The digital horror is just beginning. Fazbear Entertainment, in its ignorance or greed, keeps building new experiences: VR games, AR encounters, giant malls, and with every new creation, they leave more doors open, more systems to be corrupted, more shadows in the code. The mimic isn't haunted. It doesn't need to be. It's worse. It's empty. So here we are, nearly a decade since Five Nights at Freddy's first launched. What started as a simple indie horror game created by a solo developer has grown into one of the most complex, lore-rich and fan-driven stories in gaming history. But why? What makes FNAF special? Sure, the jumpscares were iconic, the animatronics were creepy, the resource management gameplay was stressful and addictive, but that's not what gave the series its staying power. The heart of FNAF, the thing that built a fandom, sparked 1,000 theories, and inspired books, songs, and even a movie, is its mystery. From day one, Scott Cawthon didn't just give players a game, he gave them a puzzle. He hid stories in minigames, encoded names in logbooks, and buried meaning in voice lines, visual glitches, and character design. He let players discover the narrative on their own, piece by piece, night by night, and the community rose to the challenge. People went frame by frame through trailers. They reversed audio clips, decoded ciphers, analyzed timelines, and debated character identities across forums and YouTube channels. It turned a solo experience into a shared investigation, where fans from all over the world collaborated to unearth the truth behind the haunted pizzeria. FNAF became something more than horror. It became a mythology. And like all great myths, its roots are deeply emotional. Beneath the murder mysteries and possessed robots is a story about loss, guilt, revenge, and redemption. A story of a broken family, a father obsessed with control, a son trying to make things right, a daughter consumed by duty, and a lineup of innocent children robbed of their futures. The ghosts aren't just haunting machines, they're memories, trapped by trauma, and every fire, every game, every theory is an attempt to set them free. Let's not forget the man behind it all, Scott Cawthon, a struggling game developer who almost gave up after his earlier projects were mocked. People said his characters looked creepy, lifeless. So, instead of quitting, he leaned into the fear. He took what people ridiculed and built a horror empire around it. And yet, despite the fame, Scott remained humble. He engaged with the community, he gave interviews, posted on forums, and even helped YouTubers with lore. He didn't create FNAF alone, he invited the fans to build it with him. He left clues open-ended on purpose. He respected fan theories and adjusted course in response to new discoveries. The lore of FNAF was always a dance, part vision, part reaction, part fan-fueled fire. And now, even with Scott's retirement, the fire hasn't gone out. FNAF continues to evolve, through books, new games, DLCs, and a wildly successful movie that brought Freddy and the gang to the big screen. The franchise shows no signs of stopping. New generations of fans are discovering the story, and old ones are still combing through every pixel for one more secret. Maybe the animatronics will always be haunted. Maybe fazbear entertainment will always find a way to reopen. Maybe evil really does find a way to always come back. But in the end, what keeps FNAF alive isn't William Afton, or Remnant, or even the Mimic. It's us, the players, the theorists, the artists, the dreamers who keep watching, listening, decoding, and caring. Because deep down, we all hear it. That faint music box lullaby, that laugh in the dark, that whisper in our ear that says, "It's me." And that's why, no matter how many nights pass, we'll always come back to